Guys, Wade from 7 p.m. prayer here, doing another tailgate talk. I'm sitting here on the back of my truck. Rangers out there getting a little bit of really hot afternoon sun. So I wanted to read to you, let's see here. This is just a couple of lines out of the 119th Psalm. It's the 27th verse. Make me understand the way of your precepts, so shall I meditate on your wonderful works. So one of the things that was always interesting to me when I first got to looking at the Bible was just, it seems like there's so many places where it talks about meditating on God's law, in this case it's precepts, on God's works. And when I would first see that, I would think to myself, this isn't complicated. Why are you meditating on the law? Or why are you meditating on specific works of God? Kind of in a thinking type standpoint. And what I realized is that it's in the meditating on these things and getting at the why behind these things that when it comes to the precepts, rules, etc., makes us more likely to follow them and appreciate them. I mean, can you imagine if when your parents gave you rules growing up as a kid, you went back into your room and you got on your bed and meditated thinking about why your parents told you to do this and that? I think we'd all been better kids and our parents would have had an easier life if we'd have done that. But that's a big part of is meditating on God's precepts and his why behind the things he tells us to do brings up gratitude within us, because we realize, you know what, there's nothing in any of this that's anything but for my own good. Everything he's put in place is so that I will have a better existence and those around me. So that piece of it is because of that. God's works, I think if we all spent more time meditating and thinking on God's works, we'd spend a whole lot less time trying to figure out how all this is just some gigantic accident. A couple carbon atoms getting together, right? Could all of these intelligent scientists of the world, who all they won't really admit it unless pushed, but they have to jump off in faith at some point. Their point is that what started these carbon atoms? We don't know. What started the Big Bang? We don't know. It just happened and there was no God, Well, they're not certain of that. They're not certain of anything when it comes to the star, and we're betting on God and they're betting on nothing. So the bottom line is that I know for myself, just isolating God's creation down to nature, as I've gotten into nature and spent time and walked and thought and been quiet and listened to nature, you start realizing the thought behind it. You start realizing the intelligence behind it. If you happen to get yourself to dig a little deeper and start studying into the math of nature, then you start understanding there are no accidents here. There is a fallen condition of nature. And when you're out in nature, you can begin to see that as well, which also brings to mind the perfection of God and how he built all this to be one way, and through sin, it's become another. So to me, I get it now, because there's so much of that in the Bible. There's so much of that meditating on God's laws, thinking on his precepts, wonderment and, thoughtfulness on his creation. And sometimes it just seems like, why all the energy thinking about things that are so straightforward? And what it really comes down to is bringing up the gratitude, because the world is trying to seemingly constantly get us to being complainers. Christians are not. They just want us complaining, not liking it, being unhappy, all of that. There's even motivational people out there that act like discouragement is a great thing because it gets you to strive to move forward. You should strive to move forward because you're a child of God and want to excel because of that, not because you're discouraged and, life is lousy, so I'm going to try to propel it forward. No, we're children of God. We are some of the most hallowed creatures in the universe, and it's such a blessing and an amazing opportunity to represent God to the world. That's why we push ourselves. So remember, when you run into these things in the Bible, it's really a fantastic opportunity to just think, why did God make these rules the way he did? And start thinking about what you're avoiding because you're not having to go through the downside of those rules if you're doing what he says. And then when you look at his creation, you start realizing, wow, he wanted things to be awesome for us. Everything he made for us wasn't parking lots and sewer systems. It was beautiful, leaves, trees, plants, animals, birds, all of that, the oceans, just amazing. So when you run into those sections of the Bible, just look at that as an opportunity to actually do that. Meditate on what God's saying and what he's done, and watch that gratitude build up inside. Okay, you guys, all Christians praying together at 7 p.m. tonight, and I appreciate you.